there's been a lot of talk about we got to get Ukraine to the negotiating table, right? But a ceasefire only works if both sides stop shooting. And so from your perspective, what is Putin's motivation, given that he's got the upper hand, given that, I mean, Trump has advised that Kyiv has no cards, what's Putin's motivation for stopping what appears to be forward progress on the battlefield and sitting down at the negotiating table?
Russia's making some progress, but it will take quite a while for Russia to conquer Ukraine if it ever does. It will be a very, very painful and expensive victory. Putin might be lured to agree to end the fighting with an understanding that Ukraine will be neutral. It will not be a member of NATO, and that's not even our call. That has to be voted on by NATO members with a unanimous vote. That's not going to happen. And that we will work to bring Russia back into the community of nations in good standing, bring Russia into Europe, lower sanctions on Russia with an understanding that some of Russia's revenues have to go to rebuild Ukraine. I think Trump is the only leader on the scene right now, maybe ever, who Putin may be able to deal with to get a fairly reasonable deal. If that doesn't happen, we don't know who's going to succeed Trump. I think that sanctions on Russia will get even worse. We will give even more powerful weapons to Ukraine. This is a chance for Russia to get out of it. And I don't agree with Putin's security concerns about Ukraine, but I think we can meet him halfway. We're not going to agree to NATO membership, but we're also still going to arm Ukraine to the teeth.
But, I mean, again, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate here in terms of the and to be fair to the White House, and the State Department, they've said it's cautious optimism that anything can happen in a positive direction. But Putin's been pretty clear about his hardline demands, and there's no indication that he's inclined to back off of those, and certainly not again when I'm just trying to put myself in his position and say, okay, why? Why would I stop at this point? Is it because my economy is heading south? And, I can't continue to afford this. But I guess where I'm going with this is, again, looking for leverage points that the White House may have to try to get some sort of deal that isn't essentially just giving it all away to Putin.
Well, I think that probably there'll be a new border drawn along the current battle lines. Ukraine's not going to concede any territory, but it will be decided in long-term negotiations. But this is going to take sophisticated diplomacy by Trump's top national security officials and by Trump to say to Putin, this is a better road for you and the Russian people. Of course, Putin could keep fighting and keep wrecking his economy and isolating his country, or he may see an opportunity with Trump to get out of this war and to set Ukraine up in a situation where it retains its freedom, but Putin can live with it on his borders. That means, we're not going to agree to Ukraine being disarmed, but Ukraine will agree to be neutral. Ukraine won't be put in NATO, at least for the next 10 to 25 years. We won't raise that issue. I mean, how do you twist Putin's arm? He has seemed fairly invulnerable to sanctions. He'll subject his people to extreme levels of pain to maintain his policy. It's going to take personal diplomacy, and look, it's going to be tough. I don't know that we'll win this, but I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you there at all. What's your perspective on the effectiveness of the sanctions to date?
They've done significant damage to the Russian economy, but Russia's still able to sell its energy. And the problem with our strategy with Russia is that we've pushed Russia into the arms of China. And China is buying Russian energy and goods and probably providing funds to sustain the Russian economy. And this is a huge threat to global security long term. We need to break that growing nexus between Moscow and Beijing, which also includes Iran and North Korea, I might add. And that's another reason why ending this war is so essential. And I don't think we should give anything to Putin other than what I just said. And I don't like the idea that Putin wouldn't be forced to give back all the territory he's taken. But I think we should still keep it on the table that someday we're going to ask Russia to return that territory, maybe after Putin leaves office.
Yeah, I guess that was one of my next questions, which is to what degree do you think any agreement now is really just kicking the can down the road? It gives Putin a chance to, in the short term, rebuild his economy, rearm, get the stockpiles back up. So are you concerned that any deal that's done now is temporary in a sense?
I think it's a concern. That's why Ukraine has to be fully armed too and ready to prevent any Russian invasion. And we have to have peacekeepers along the border to monitor a ceasefire. And I mean, there's a concern that there might be an agreement under the Trump administration and a future president wouldn't support it, or maybe Putin would defer to Trump but would invade after Trump leaves office. Steps will have to be taken to cement this deal. And I think that means bringing Russia into the community of nations and finding ways to somehow address the issues that Ukraine has with Russia. It's going to be a hard slog.
Yeah, and he's already said, Putin's already said repeatedly that he will not agree to any international force, any EU peacekeeping deployment. So he's been pretty clear about what he won't accept. And so that's why I think most of the world is somewhat fascinated by the idea of, okay, what will this thing look like if it's not just acquiescing to his current hardline demands?
Well, there's several things going on right now. The Trump administration has called for sending European and non-European peacekeepers to Ukraine. Europe is talking about sending something different. They want to send a deterrence force that would use military force to enforce a ceasefire and other peace agreement. Putin is never going to agree to NATO ground troops in Ukraine that could attack Russia. That's not going to happen. Europe has to stop talking about that. But I think we can get Putin to agree to peacekeepers. Now look, in classic peacekeeping, each of the parties get to decide what nations contribute to peacekeeping. I don't think Putin's going to agree to British troops on his border, but he may agree to Irish troops. He may agree to Egyptian troops from Nepal. There are many nations with experience in peacekeeping who I think would be acceptable to Ukraine and Russia. And look, this has to be negotiated.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.